So we shall start. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this seminar on impact of crisis on innovation and commercialization. Glad to see quite a number of participants and the counts are going up. We're close to 40 of them. My name is Joel William. I'm the CEO of Medhini Group. Medhini Group provides consultancy services for engineering and construction for high-tech industries. And as part of our offering, we also do a lot of training, and we are glad to be partner with Adipven on this seminar. So let me quickly introduce our speaker for today. This is Mr. Ramakrishna Damodharan. Mr. Rama is an IP attorney and has been in practice for more than 20 years. He is a registered patent, trademark, industrial design, geographical indications, and new plant variety and grant of breeders' right agent in Malaysia. And surprisingly, he has a degree in applied chemistry and law from University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. He's currently doing his PhD in law. He has been named as an inventor and co-inventor in a number of patent applications, arguably the only patent agent in Malaysia with such credential. He knows how to think as a creator of IP rights and as a protector of IP rights. This is a very unique credential of Mr. Rama that not many patent or legal officers have, especially by having a degree in applied chemistry as well. Mr. Rama is actively involved in the promotion of IP, speaking at many local and foreign conferences. He has been invited by organizations like Malaysian Palm Oil Board, University Malaya, University Putra Malaysia, University Science of Malaysia, Technology Park Malaysia, etc. to deliver talks on IP and commercialization. He has also been invited by international agencies such as International Science, Technology and Innovation Centre for South-South Cooperation, which is under the auspices of UNESCO, Hong Kong Trade Development Centre, University of Brunei Darussalam, and Brunei Economy Development Board to deliver talks on IP matters. He was invited by Japanese Patent Attorneys Association to deliver e-learning seminar on trademark and design, prosecution, and litigation systems in ASEAN countries in English language, and the first Asian to have done so. The seminar has been broadcast to more than 10,000 patent attorneys in Japan. That's really a great achievement. Rama has also been recently named as Recommended Patent Prosecution Expert for Malaysia 2020 by IAM. So Mr. Rama is the Managing Director of Adipven, a boutique IP firm based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Before I hand over to Rama, I mean, we all are in the time of a crisis with pandemic COVID. And I think this topic that we are going to listen from Mr. Rama is very adept, timely, because innovation is something that doesn't stop. But more so ever in time of crisis, this is where innovation really picks up. One might wonder, why do you actually need innovation at all? Can't we just stay in status quo? We can't. Especially in time of crisis, we know that without innovating new drugs, it'll be a big threat to humankind. So some housekeeping rules. We will allow question and answer at the end of the session. Meanwhile, if you have some urgent questions, you can put it in the chat, and it being relevant, we will answer that along the talk. Mr. Rama will answer that along the talk. This session will also be recorded and will be posted on Facebook. So without further ado, let me pass the screen to Mr. Rama for his presentation. Over to you, Mr. Rama.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. And let me just thank Joel for the kind introduction and for agreeing to moderate today's webinar. And I hope all the attendees are doing well. I know it's very unpredictable times now because everywhere you go, we see things differently. There's no such thing as what we used to do in 2019. Everywhere we go, we wear our face masks. Everywhere we see, people are trying to avoid shaking hands and stuff. So I hope everyone is doing well. I know it's very, very difficult times, okay? But I also happy that I can see some familiar faces and names here. Some of my clients are also here. All right, thank you very much for joining me today once again. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a few things, and Joel, I think, alluded to that. A lot of people think that innovations during crisis may not be important. In fact, most people may not think about innovation, because even if you think from the government's perspective, there's going to be a lot of budget cut, obviously, because they're not making money, and the first thing they normally cut will be money spent on innovation. But let's face it, we are living in a very surreal times. Okay, people are but at the same time, people are also thriving during these times, and that's because of innovation. For example, let's take cases of gloves and face mask manufacturers. Obviously, they are making billions of dollars now, and that's because of the demand. Just imagine if they don't have the setup or the production line to produce sufficient gloves and face masks. There's no way they can meet the demand. So obviously, while they are making money, that's because they have the innovation, they have the setup, they have the arrangement all in place. Okay. People always recognize that innovations during easy times are rather easy, for the lack of better word. But of course, during the time of crisis, you just need to find a bit more challenging. Okay, the first thing that people always struggle is the funding. Okay, but at the same time, lack of funding also generate another opportunity, that we try to create something easy, something cheaper. In fact, just about 3 days ago, Tun Mahathir actually posted on his blog about that innovation during crisis should be encouraged, should be welcome, because things are cheaper, materials are cheaper, workforce, of course, there's a lot of people who are now unemployed. So technically speaking, you can get so-called quote-unquote cheaper workforce in the market. Okay, but when we must remember that when all other avenues are closed, we really need to be creative. Okay, innovation during crisis sounds a bit cliche, because it is, but then at the same time, that's what we need to do in order to survive this crisis. Take this example, this webinar as an example. Do you think that we were able to conduct this webinar without the internet? Can you imagine conducting this webinar without the 3G or 4G networks? Do you think that it was possible to conduct this kind of webinar, or even working from home? Like, for example, Cik Izada mentioned that she's working from home. Do you think that this was possible about 10 years ago, when we were still relying on 2G and 1G networks? All right. That's the reason why we chose this topic, and we feel that it's very apt, and as Joel said, very, very relevant topic, because this is the time that a lot of innovations are happening, and these innovations are actually changing our life, the way we behave, the way we talk, the way we communicate with others. Okay. As a matter of practice, I always keep my presentation very colorful and a lot of images. Then for that purpose, you won't see a lot of text in my following slides. So don't worry about if you think that you're going to miss any of the important points. As Joel said, that we are indeed recording this webinar, and the video will be posted on our socials maybe later today or latest by tomorrow. Therefore, please do go to our Facebook page, Instagram page, like, comment, and share the video with your friends and family. Okay, let me go to the second slide. Okay. Recently, this was in March 2020. Yeah? There was a study done in Malaysia by iPrice on things that Malaysians search for during the movement control order back in March 2020. You will be surprised to know that things that you usually take for granted suddenly became hot products. Okay, obviously the products like a face mask, gloves, people assume that these are on demand, fair enough. But then you will also see that products like brake makers, hair trimmers, suddenly became so important. For example, if you see this particular slide, hair trimmers, the increase in terms of the number of searches during the MCO period was almost 18,000%. Yeah, you heard it right, 18,000%. Even games, you can see almost 70,500%. Okay, but I'm not sure whether you can see from the slide here. You also see that things that people usually don't pay attention, like sensual toys, sex toys, and all that. Suddenly, there's a sudden spike in interest. If you can see there, They were 347% increase in terms of searching for sensual toys and vibrators. Don't ask me why. I'm sure there's a reason for it, because when you're alone, you don't have anything, these kind of things may be of demand. So just for your info. Okay, now just imagine, again, just imagine if we did not have any online portals like Lazada or Shopee, or without internet during this time. I'm sure they will be finding it very difficult to survive, because obviously everybody is discouraged from traveling, everybody is discouraged from going to the malls and supermarket to buy things. So obviously, without this kind of online portals, we would have struggled even more. Now we are struggling, but things would have been even worse if without this kind of innovation. Okay, since the pandemic hit us beginning of 2020, a lot of things have changed. We are keeping our social distancing, as I said earlier. A lot of people, in fact, most of us have started working from home. Businesses around the world are working very hard to keep their business afloat, even when there's no guarantee when or where the next dollar will come from. Believe it or not, a lot of businesses not only surviving, but also they are thriving during the current crisis. Let me share some example of folks that are doing extremely or amazing job during the current COVID-19 crisis. These are the people who positioning themselves as industry leaders, and they are making a difference, a huge difference, I should say, to their communities. Remember, you don't have to create a big innovation. Yeah, you don't have to create a next Google. You don't have to create a next Amazon or Alibaba. Simple, improvements, simple changes to your daily life, the way we think, the way we behave, the way we walk, the way we communicate are also innovations. And everything helps when you are in need. Okay, first example, photographer. I receive a lot of emails and messages from a lot of my photographer friends and clients who have been telling me, Rama, listen, I don't know what I can do now. Okay, this is hard, as all of us are required to keep social distancing in their businesses. They need to they need to make changes to the props so that they really have to go to the client's premises to take their photos. Okay, so obviously during the early stages of COVID-19 crisis, photographers, a lot of them have lost job. A lot of them have shut down their businesses. But there are people who are actually thought of this and think that they should come up with a new idea. Okay, so there was this lady photographer who came up with this wonderful idea, what they call as front porch photography. As you can see this photo. Okay, as while the coronavirus madness and everything descends on us, many of us find ourselves at home with our entire family. Perhaps most of you will agree, for the first time. Now, given how crazy schedules can get, it's hard for the entire family members to be together at the same time. If your family like mine, you know that one person is out, the other person's may be in, or vice versa. It's a rare moment that everyone's together under one roof, and what better time to get a family portrait while everyone's together. However, there's the problem, social distancing. These kind of front porch photographers require you to gather your family on the front porch. They come in, they take your family picture using their amazing camera lens for a distance of at least 12 feet away. Easy, simple, you don't have to change a lot of things. The only thing that you have to keep is that you make sure that you keep your social distancing and make sure that the clients follow the social distancing rules that you have, follow the SOP, and so on and so forth. Okay, some bakeries around the world have started putting their talents to good use towards quarantine cakes. They create small cakes that generally cater for 1 to 3 people. As you can imagine, no guests are not allowed in most households now. These kind of cakes come with fun messages like, don't touch my face, wash your hands, wear your mask, this is my quarantine cake, etc., etc. Okay, by injecting a little bit of humor, these quarantine cakes really appealing to people with that sweet tooth. Okay, the bakeries are getting their businesses going at the same time, and as you can imagine, this kind of ideas is getting massive press coverage. Okay, there was a huge write-up on this in New York Times back in April, if I remember correctly. So they had a full page of coverage on cotton cakes, bakeries that produce cotton cakes, where they actually talk about how they came up with these ideas and what is the demand like, what is the pricing like, and what are the things that they are probably doing after the end of the crisis. So let's say we must remember COVID-19 is going to be part of our life. It's not going to be completely wiped out from our life. So whether we like it or not, people will still stay away. People will still avoid going to big parties or birthday parties like what we are talking about now. And this kind of small size cakes probably will have continued demands as we go along this crisis. Next. Okay, my favorite, music. DJ, this guy, his name is DJ D Nice. Is a DJ on Instagram who has the comfort from of his home being putting out amazing music parties. So he's literally doing what he calls as couch parties. I first came to know about him around April, May this year. And that time, if I remember correctly, he had about 1.4 to 1.5 million followers back in April, May this year. Now, if you go to his Instagram page, or at least when I was preparing this slide about 10 days ago, I believe, I saw that he has about 2.5 million followers. So in the last 6-7 months, he has increased his number of followers by 1 million. All right. This is actually because he's having a good time by bringing the good music to the followers who are pretty much stuck at home. He is actually a DJ who normally gets paid during doing DJ at events, but now he's taking the usually a paid gig and creating it to a massive visibility to himself. Just imagine if he was doing this before COVID-19 crisis, he'd probably be doing DJing in front of, say, 1,000 people. Now, he actually literally doing that to almost 2.5 million followers at real time. And this is, we are talking about pretty much every day, every night, every weekends, right? So the massive visibility that he's creating, because of the visibility, he's now endorsing a lot of products as part of his money-making adventure. So while he's not making money going to the parties or DJing at the party, the physical parties, so to speak, he's making money by endorsing products in the form of advertisement, doing online parties through his Instagram page. Okay, how about kids? Can kids innovate? If you, some of you may have noticed this news. This was published by the Star newspaper online on the 6th of November 2020. So, as you can see from the headline, you probably will know that these boys actually created an online food platform to help their retrenched aunt during the pandemic. So that means these guys realized they are young fellas, I think about 12, 13-year-old boys. So they created an online platform just like your GrabFood and whatnot, okay, to help their aunt who has lost the job because of the crisis, all right? So don't think that only adults, only seniors can create innovation. We are talking about kids who are like 12, 13-year-old kids also can create innovation that can actually change the way we behave. Next. Okay, now, enough of a discussion of the small innovations. Let's focus more on things a bit more complex. From the list of attendees that was shared with me about a week ago, I noticed at least some of you come from this organization called Clinical Research of Malaysia. So maybe it's good that we can talk about a bit of healthcare. Recently, I think about in May this year, a French firm published a white paper on vaccine patterns on viral infections such as Ebola, SARS, and MERS. And in the white paper, they actually predicted how and which countries will react during the current pandemic, i.e. during the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, because it's a French French firm published the white paper, there have been a lot of focus on the European side of the research area, But then they did talk about what is happening, what was happening, and what is going to happen in the US, in China, in Japan. But not surprisingly, they never focus too much on the developing nations like Malaysia. How are we responding to the crisis? How are we making progress in the development or research in vaccine against COVID-19? So, some of you may heard in the last 10 days or so, two companies have published news that they have found vaccines. One said, without naming names, one said that they claim 90%, and the other one who actually published the paper, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago, they claim about 95%. But remember, these are European and US pharma companies. Now, of course, there have been some reports on that some Chinese companies, pharma companies, have developed or coming up with vaccines. But all this will take a lot of time before we can see the vaccine. Okay, even if when we have the vaccine, obviously the frontliners will have the first opportunity to be vaccinated. So of course, the general public will we still have to wait a long time for us to get it. But also remember, when the so-called richer countries come up with this kind of vaccine, obviously they will to focus on vaccinating their own people. Okay, so by the time the poorer cousins like us get the vaccine or get the access to the vaccine, it's going to take a long time. Also, there have been reports on countries like, without naming names, I'm sure you probably can guess it. Some countries actually using this excuse to actually put pressure, politically speaking, on how they work together with the developing nations, so that in order some of the countries, the richer ones, actually demanded some political prisoners to be released, some issues to be settled between countries. Okay, of course, it's between G to G issues, but this is how people going to behave. This is how people going to see things going to happen in the next few years and months. Okay. Now, when the company, coming back to the companies that publish reports that they have found vaccine with 90% or 95% accuracy level, you can see the stock exchanges reacted. Okay. If you notice, the New York Stock Exchange increased a record high the moment the first company reported 90%. So you can see this kind of innovation. We can see that the importance of the innovation in the healthcare, it is not only about the well-being of the people, but it's also from the finance things on other things like financials and so on and so forth. All right. So it's not purely the human life that we are talking about. Okay. From the list of attendees that sign up for today's webinar, I'm aware that some of you are from universities. Maybe it's important for me to share some details of innovation coming out from universities during this current pandemic. Let's take this example of a university called Northwestern University, and the researcher's name is Josiah Hester. Dr. Hester has developed a smart PPE in the form of a face mask with tiny sensors to detect all kind of things with, from symptoms of COVID-19 to fatigue, to even determine whether if the mask fits on your face or if you are wearing it properly. Okay, so that means, let's say if you're not wearing the mask properly, you can get an alarm by saying that, hey, you're wearing a mask, but you're not wearing it properly. Please wear it properly. That kind of messages. Of course, the messages come through your mobile phone and all that. So this kind of unique feature actually is to engineer the sensors to run. The thing is, remember, we have to, because these are like a face mask, so whether we like it or not, these sensors have to run without any battery. And of course, a bigger problem is how to reduce cost to enable it to be produced in billions of pieces in a year so that it can reach the masses. Remember, not only you have to produce in big bulk, you also must mass produce it as quickly as possible. These are the challenges that the university found. So I will come back to this in a moment. Just let me just go to the next slide. Also relating to the same university. Okay, while Dr. Hester's innovation that I was talking about in the earlier slide is still in the lab scale, his colleague from the same university, Prof. John Rogers, has taken his innovation one step ahead. Prof. Rogers has not only invented a wearable device with multiple sensors to detect symptoms of COVID-19. The best part is that he started manufacturing them in his own lab in the university. The device that Prof. Rogers has invented is similar to, some of you may be familiar to this product called Band-Aid. Therefore, you can actually put this in any part of your body and not only to your wrist. When I did a research on his innovation, I found out that he originally intended this device to be used for stroke survivors, primarily to monitor their speech and their swallowing activities. So as you can imagine, stroke patients normally, they may not be able to move the entire body very well. Obviously, the first part that will be, first thing that will be affected normally is the speech and the trachea, of course, their hand and leg. But this particular device is actually was intended to monitor their speech and how they swallow. When COVID-19 hit back in February, March, they realized, Prof. Rogers and his team realized that the same device can be enhanced to monitor key respiratory symptoms associated with COVID-19, such as you can imagine, coughing and shortness of breath. Within 3 weeks, I was very surprised when I saw this. Within 3 weeks, just 3 weeks, he and his team actually have modified the device and implemented it in a health facility in Chicago. And they have collected the data to be analyzed with AI tools like machine learning. Now, the university, Northwestern University, has spin-off companies that actually serve the vehicle to commercialize the invention from the university. So this is where the issue here is. We are talking about innovation. If the innovations don't go to the market, the innovation actually is a cost to the university. Remember, universities normally, to my experience doing IP and working with the university for the last 20 odd years now, a lot of universities, they are creating wonderful invention. I have no arguments about that. But the problem is when it comes to commercialization, they struggle. When you talk about commercialization, we are not talking about making money. Yes, it is an important element, no doubt about that. But the point here is that without the innovations being commercialized, the public will not have access to the products. So just imagine Prof. Rogers' products and also Dr. Hetter's product. That's not that I was talking about in the earlier slide. If there is no company taking over these kind of innovations and then commercialize them in times of crisis like now, you're not going to get these kind of products anytime soon. Okay, and we have to remember, when people have lost their jobs, when people have nothing to do, they don't have money to spend. So obviously, when you talk about innovation, your innovation, while it has solved, they have to solve a problem, the innovations have also must be capable of reaching the target markets. So if you're talking about COVID-19, obviously COVID-19 doesn't differentiate the rich ones and the poor ones. So obviously your device, your solution must be able to meet the requirement of everyone across the board. Next. Okay. From this and the previous slide, I just want to recap a few important points. Remember, pandemics, just like COVID-19 or even during SARS, MERS and whatnot, bring new sets of problems. And with that, we also notice that pandemics also bring new sets of solutions. Who would have thought that in 2020, all of us will be required to wear a face mask? And that you need to wear it correctly, not only to protect you yourself, but also others. Innovation that were developed for different purposes, like Dr. Prof. Rogers' method just now, may be enhanced or improved for different purposes. And also remember, innovations that come from universities or publicly funded research centers have to be supported commercially. You cannot rely on the philanthropies or foundation or research grants to bring this innovation. You need to commercialize this innovation. When I say you, I'm referring to the university and the public research centers. You need to commercialize these innovations so that you can help the mankind to overcome these problems. A lot of people also ask me. In fact, a lot of university lecturers have asked me over the years, why do I have to commercialize innovation from the universities or the public research centers when this research were mostly funded by the taxpayers' money? Their arguments are that you take money from the public to do research, and once you come up with something useful, you force the public to buy it, and normally these kind of innovations come with relatively high price. Why can't we make them freely available to everyone? Okay, very good question, and also is a very good thought of the researchers to come up with these kind of questions. I really understand and I really appreciate why they ask this question. But you must remember, yeah, that universities innovations normally are at lab scale. I'm highlighting the work normally or generally. The reason being, there are some universities have gone beyond the lab scale, but normally universities produce lab scale innovations, and they do not usually go into business. Okay, they need spin-off companies or corporate partners to bring this kind of innovation to the pilot scale and eventually to the commercial scale in order to market the products or the services. These companies, these spin-off companies need to spend a lot of money for this purpose. Okay, and therefore these products will be expensive in relative term and at the beginning stage. Okay, remember, without these companies here, the product may not even hit the market, and eventually people may not have access to these products. So while you have to accept that this kind of innovation, at least at the initial inventions, new inventions that are coming up from the universities, from the research centers, are expected to be expensive, are expected to be, may not be perfect, but these are the best that we can do at this time. So whether we like it or not, we have to accept that these products going to be expensive and will take a lot of time to hit the market. But without the challenge is to the researchers to make it possible to mass produce it in order to achieve a relatively lower price. Okay, I touched on AI when I was discussing with, about Prof. Rogers' innovation earlier. Maybe I should talk more now, as AI, as we speak, is changing the world, and in fact challenging the world on, as I said earlier, how we talk, how we communicate, how we walk, how you drive, and all that. Although, ladies and gentlemen, although AI became a buzzword only recently, maybe about 10 years or so, the reality is that AI emerged in the 1950s, with the first mention of AI, the term AI, coming in 1955. 1955. That was 65 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. Since that time, innovators and researchers have published more than 1.6 million AI-related scientific publications and filed patents for nearly 340,000 AI-related inventions. AI, as I said earlier, is changing the way we communicate, the way we work, the way we eat, the way we think. Did you know that Amazon has an AI system where it can actually predict what you will be, I repeat, what you will be thinking of buying, okay, next week or the following week, okay? Not what you have ordered here, what you will be ordering in the next week or the following week. The idea is Amazon can store the product even before you thought of ordering it, so that Amazon's idea is they want to deliver the good to the person who ordered the good as soon as you place the order. See, very interesting, but at the same time very scary. You know why? Because you have a system, an AI system, that can actually predict how you going or predict things that you never thought before yet, and it also actually, in order, that also push these companies to push their products to the market even before there's a demand. Okay, some of you are also from research institutes like the Malaysian Rubber Board. Welcome, guys. So maybe it's good that I can talk about agricultural also. One of the implications of COVID-19, at least in Malaysia, is that, or in fact in most countries around the world, is that they have closed the borders. And this has prevented the foreign laborers from coming in. As you can imagine, in Malaysia, easily we are relying on 4 to 5 million foreign laborers to work in our plantation. Just like any other country, Malaysia also relies very much on foreign laborers in plantation. So the question now is how plantation companies are surviving in this era where very few or no foreign workers are available. Let me introduce you to Microsoft's FarmBits. This project combines low-cost soil sensors, aerial imaging, vision and machine learning algorithm to complement the farmer's institution, helping to increase productivity and to reduce cost. Okay, what they normally do is that a farmer normally places this small number of data transmitting sensors in the ground and then attaches a smartphone to either a drone or to a helium balloon to create an aerial map of their farm. The data generated is actually a very interesting and a game changer. Okay, based on Microsoft's report, it has been reported that a farmer can decrease water use for irrigation by about 30%, 30, and use 44% less time to control soil acidity. Information on soil temperature and moisture levels can help the farmers to better time seed planting, resulting in a more productive harvest. The aerial map can also be used to predict flood patterns. Obviously, flood is a big issue in the plantation area. So this product not only for agriculture, for to help the farmers, it is also to help the authorities to predict flood patterns. While most farm data systems require expensive transmitters and established infra to transmit data, FarmBits relies on a workaround that bypasses the need of internet, even mains power. It uses what they call as a TV white space and is powered by solar energy. White space are usually unused TV broadcast spectrum. The term they use is like the Americans call it snow. The snow that sometimes you see when flipping through channels. These gaps in spectrum are plentiful in the remote area where most farms are located, as you can imagine. So data can be sent over from over them in the same way the data is transmitted via broadband. The FarmBits, the inventors of FarmBits believe that the AI-enabled technology will give the farmers around the world the tools they need to significantly increase global food production in the context of limited land and water, at the same time limited human resources. The beauty about AI is that it can be extended to any domain. Let's look at this photo. For someone, some of you may be familiar with Amazon Go. This photo shows about facial recognition experts working with business analysts, setting up a system that allows customers to buy products without any register, without any queue and all that. Here, we have a very minimum human-to-human contact, which is important during pandemic like now. This is actually, to my knowledge, has been patented in the US by Amazon, but I don't think it was patented in many countries. Now, I had the opportunity or the chance to visit Amazon Go in Seattle at the HQ a few years back. So not a very big setup, relatively a small setup. So when I went there were only two people. One person managing the entrance where they make sure that the person makes sure that you have the app that you need to actually scan and to enter the premises. And another person, guess what? Obviously at the alcohol section, because in the US there is an age limit for you to buy alcoholic drinks. So they check your ID, your passport. So they have a relatively medium-sized setup, which is being managed by only 2%. Okay. Yes, this concept or this model was invented well before the current pandemic. This has been there for almost 10 years now. But you can imagine this system suddenly became a very interesting prospect for many retail outlets around the world. Can you imagine you are going into a supermarket with one or two people managing you? The idea is we need to avoid human-to-human context. So if you don't have the register, if you don't have a person watching you or the helping you to carry stuff, so you are actually minimizing your connection contact with people. All right. So now it is also impossible that you can have supermarkets and retail outlets working 24 hours. Okay, with very minimum human employees. Okay. So I noticed at least one of you is from Petronas. Welcome. For those who are not familiar, and I think some of you are from overseas today, Petronas is actually our Malaysia's national oil and gas company, and I'm happy that they are the only one. At least we have one Malaysian company in Fortune 500 list. Yeah. Okay. Now speaking about Petronas, obviously we need to talk about oil and gas and their innovation. When I say their innovation, I'm not referring to Petronas per se. I'm talking about all oil and gas companies during this current pandemic. See, innovation is not about helping people. It's about being a key part of the solution. However, to benefit from the innovation and to achieve sustainable growth and value creation, companies have to adopt a systematic approach to innovation. In particular, companies should strategically evaluate and rebuild their innovation capabilities, taking into account that there are a lot of factors involved, such as energy transaction, fourth industrial revolution, climate and environmental concerns. The path the oil and gas industry travels is from extraction to end customer is in a state of transformation. Operations, as you can imagine, are changing at every link in the supply chain. As companies, oil and gas companies, adopt new and emerging technologies, digitalize their enterprises, and to streamline processes. You see, one of the things that they came up recently is actually what they call as horizontal drilling. Horizontal drilling on its own is not a new technique, and it's not an example of digitalization of the oil field. Rather, it is actually being used as an enhanced data collection tool driven by the advances in the seismic imaging. And this kind of data analysis is leading oil and gas companies to greater precision once the drilling begins. These companies' ability to replicate and sustain early successful digitalization initiatives will be key to cutting costs, obviously, and to maximize output. Remember, cutting costs and to maximize output is a very key important goal in any industry, such as not limited to oil and gas. While producers are standout examples of these kind of technologies, okay, they are certainly not the only energy players taking up in this revolution. To illustrate how Industry 4.0 is changing the traditional journey oil and gas companies takes to move from the supply chain, let me highlight to you some example on both incremental and sweeping changes, I should say, at each stage into the supply chain. Okay, let's take example of maintenance and safety. See, oil and gas, as you can imagine, is a very complex business, very complex industry. Okay, boasting on a very true eagle eye views, drones are being used now as is a tool to overcome or to change traditional inspection methods and to facilitate early detection of oil and gas leaks in what we call as a difficult to access locations, like offshore drilling sites. In the midstream sector, drones normally are equipped with a thermal imaging system that can identify points of vulnerable items across. You can imagine millions of the pipelines, yeah, million miles of pipeline. Of course, the next thing that we need to look into the connectivity. Increased data integration and information sharing up and downstream will allow oil and gas companies to adjust their production level in real time based on the inventory data from the storage facilities, of course, rate of distribution, forecasted demand, and of course, government policies. Obviously, as you can imagine, most oil and gas companies are members of OPEC. And OPEC, normally, they will come up with the guidelines, not rules, but guidelines rather, on how how much OPEC countries, member states should produce in order to manage or to maintain the price at a reasonable rate. So this kind of data integration can help to predict future production level. Of course, we are talking about, as an oil and gas company, we cannot forget about exploration. As a core part of exploration, seismic imaging is a process already being used in data analytics and 3D visualization models. When you talk about exploration companies and production companies moving into the next generation of seismic imaging, implementing with 4D models that can integrate production data to map changes into the reserves oil and gas levels. These advances aim to actually to be more precisely pinpoint the quantity of resources and the lifespan of each well. Then we talk about production, for example. The digitalization of the drilling process is a potential gold mine for the oil field services. Okay, for example, among the E&P companies, energy and petroleum companies, a lot of these benefits can be seen. For example, you can leverage data from the software sensors to determine which drilling method combined with the right mixture of sand, water, and chemical in order to maximize the well's output. Okay, you also have automated drillers to increase production, obviously to reduce cost, and also we have drilling equipment that have been embedded with smart sensors to collect data. Okay, next is storage. If you are talking about storage in oil and gas, is very important because the key area of transformation which includes the improvement of data management is to track the inventory level and to make sure that we have the temperature control being automated. Of course, then we have to talk about transportation. When you talk about rail cars and the track to transport oil and gas, we have to make sure that this kind of rail cars and tracks must come with smart sensors, must come with thermal detectors that can actually provide you real-time geolocation data and to monitor key safety features, of course, to minimize the risk of derailments. Okay, pipelines with smart sensors can also detect leaks early and to monitor variables such as pressure, temperature, and any deforms in the pipelines. Okay, next we are talking about refining. Smart sensors can actually enhance monitoring of the safety and the functionality of all processes. Then we talk about production. AI can also help you to predict analytical companies to forecast demand to greater accuracy to make sure that we can seamlessly communicate the data throughout the supply chain to automate the production level. Oil and gas, why I'm spending a lot of time on oil and gas, because that's my area. I do a lot of work on oil and gas. As you can imagine, Petronas is one of our clients. So I do a lot of research on them. That's why I probably have spent about last 10-15 minutes on this particular slide alone. Yeah. So just bear with me on this one. Let me move on to the next slide. Okay. I don't know some of you can see this clearly or not. This particular slide is talking about nanotechnology, because I think we have some participants from Nano Malaysia. Okay. Did you know that the coronavirus behind the COVID-19 pandemic is just 60 nanometer to 120 nanometers in size? Okay. So the problem that we are facing now is that we are battling an enemy that we cannot see using our naked eyes. Okay. So some of the companies, some of the research centers have come up with solution. Of course, that solution is to fight tiny with another tiny. Nanotechnology is a tiny solution that we are talking about here. Nanotech has an impressive record against viruses, and that for those who are not familiar with nanotechnology, I can tell you that nanotechnology has been used to fight to create vaccines and all that since 1880s, to identify and separate all the viruses. Okay, most recently, nanomedicine has been used to develop treatments for flu, Zika, and also to HIV. Now, maybe Nano Malaysia can join in the fight against COVID-19 virus using nanotechnology. Okay, when you talk about nanotechnology, there are many things that you can do. One of the things is that diagnosis. If you are suspected of having COVID COVID-19, swabs from your throat or nose will be taken and tested by the RT-PCR, i.e. the reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction. This method checks if a genetic material from the coronavirus is present in samples, in the sample taken from the patient or the suspect. Despite being highly accurate, this test can take up to 3 days to produce result. I think now currently it's taking about 2 to 3 days, but on average about up to 3 days to produce result, and it requires high-tech equipment only accessible in a lab and can only tell you if you have active infection when the test is taken. Remember that I used the word active infection. That means antibody tests, while checks for the presence of the coronavirus antibodies in your blood, can only produce result immediately whenever you are tested. All right, let me see this. The good thing about antibody tests is that this kind of test can tell you if you have coronavirus and also if you have previously had it. So this is where the nanotechnology comes in. Based on the report, these tests are more than 95% accurate and can give you the results within 15 minutes. Next is vaccine and treatment. For those who are in the nanotech, probably you'll be aware, the major turning point in the battle of coronavirus will be dependent on the successful vaccine, and nanotechnology will definitely have a big say in this. Okay, but there are some limitations that in that typical vaccine materials can prematurely break down in the bloodstream and does not always reach the target location, and therefore it will reduce the efficiency of the vaccine. One of the solutions that has been proposed by a nanotechnology company in the US is that to enclose the vaccine material inside what they call as a nano shell. This can improve the immune response of people like elderly people or high-risk people to the vaccine. And critically, people need lower doses of these encapsulated vaccines to develop immunity, meaning not only you can produce it more quickly, you can also produce it more enough to vaccinate the entire population. Using the nano cell, vaccines that doctors use in patients now can target specific areas of the body to deliver the drugs directly to the targeted organs and to help to regulate their immune system response. Next, we are talking about transmission. Ladies and gentlemen, you must remember, it's hard to ignore the importance of wearing face masks and washing hands in reducing the spread of COVID-19. I will never deny that. But typical face covering like face mask can have some issues like trouble stopping the most penetrating particles of respiratory droplets, and most of them can only be used once. New fabrics have been developed by nano companies, whereby they are using nanofibers of 100 nm thick and coated with titanium oxide. These kind of fabrics can catch droplets smaller than 1000 nm. Masks, gloves, and other PPE products such as made of these fabrics can also be washed and reused, and therefore they are also more breathable. So now let's talk about IP. When you talk about IP during the current pandemic, this is where I come from, because I'm a registered IP agent, like a patent agent. Just like any other organizations and businesses, IP officers around the world face the full force of the pandemic. But most IP officers, I'm happy to tell you, have continued to receive and examine patent applications and trademark application uninterruptedly. Okay, of course, the process has been delayed. The number of cases that have been filed obviously has dropped because not many people are willing to spend money on filing new patents, new trademarks. At the same time, because of the workforce of the patent officers, trademark officers working from home, their productivity has dropped. Okay, in order to mitigate the issue of slow response or less number of filings, some patent officers have started offering services that may help clients, the applicants. For example, patent offices like the USPTO, the US Patent and Trademark Office that you are seeing now on the slide now, they actually have started offering new programs to expedite examination of patent and trademark application relating to COVID-19. Meaning, if you have, like for example, if you can see from the slide here, this particular application have been examined very, very fast because the patent officers realized that we need to expedite, we need to help the applicant to grant the patents and the trademark applications rather quickly in order for the products to hit the market. Okay, patent officers and trademark officers have also extended the deadline, and in fact, most of them have waived many fees they usually charge for late filings. More and more patent examiners and judges have started using video conferencing to continue their interaction with those who appear before them. Previously, for those who are familiar with the Malaysian patent and trademark officers, the examiners, they don't meet people, and even if they do, they insist that they come face to face. But now, because of existence of technologies like Zoom and Olo and whatnot, a lot of people have started, a lot of the examiners have started accepting video conferencing tools as a medium for conferencing for discussion with their clients. We have seen during the crisis, rapid access to the existing technologies can further accelerate development of a new technology. So earlier this year, from what you can see here, the USPTO launched what they call as Patents for Partnership, P4P platform, which helps inventors showcase their patents and for licensees, potential licensees, to identify the technologies they might need to license from others. This platform allows an owner of a patent or published patent application to voluntarily list their inventions, and it's quite easy. And interestingly, the USPTO does not charge for doing for publishing this kind of innovation into their platform. So the idea is, the USPTO not only examining your application, they have taken one step ahead to help the clients, the applicants, and the patent owners, trademark owners, to list their products so that people, companies who have the funds, who are looking for this kind of innovations, can go to these kind of platforms like P4P platforms to identify innovations that they may be of interest to them, and to start initiating the commercial discussions. All right. In addition to that, to better serve all the stakeholders, now the IP officers around the world have been consulting throughout the pandemic among themselves, among the IP officers themselves. What they are doing now is that they learn from each other, and they are also sharing the best practices in order to overcome the issues that they face during these times here. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, when we planned for this webinar, it was never meant to end with this particular today's session only. Yeah? In fact, we are indeed planning to organize separate webinars based on the interest groups to discuss about innovation that have changed and what will change the world as we look at it as at this point of time. For example, if you're from the healthcare or pharmaceutical industry, we can organize a webinar exclusively about that subject. Okay. Similarly, if you are from oil and gas, we can do one for you too. Please get in touch with us by writing to rama@adipven.com, and we will definitely revert to you with our proposal and the action plan for the webinar that is of interest to you. I will share the email address again in the last slide, so don't worry if you missed the email address just now. Okay. We, as a firm, Adipven, we post a lot of details of new innovations, intellectual property, commercialization, and all related subjects from Malaysia and all other countries on our social media pages like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Please do follow us in order to get the latest updates on this matter. As a token of appreciation for those of you who have joined us today, and those who will follow us on our socials, I'm happy to announce to you that you'll be entitled to get a 10% discount if you engage us with any of your requirements. 10% is quite big, yeah, in this time. So please use this opportunity to get this discount, yeah. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just to summarize and what are things that we discussed, COVID-19 or not, coronavirus or not, quarantine or not, this is a time for all of us to innovate. Think about how we can innovate within your industry and how your innovation, however big or small, can change the mankind. Remember, please think about how to bring your products and services into the marketplace. Remember, if you can't do it, nobody can. With that, I thank you for joining me, and of course, my special appreciations goes to Joel as the moderator for today, and to our corporate partners, the Petri Dish, Science Centre Malaysia, and the Medhini Group, and my team members, Grace and Dini, for organizing this useful event despite their busy schedule. Joel, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Mr. Rama. It's really an interesting talk, very colorful indeed. All the participants don't go off yet. There are a few more things that's going to take place. We are going to do a quick survey, which is done through the polls on the Zoom itself. Immediately after the survey, we'll go into some question and answer. We have got some question that has already been asked. Mr. Rama will attempt to answer those questions. But to the team, can we start the poll now? So if you click on the poll button, I'm just going to launch the poll. The poll is launched. Click on the poll button. There are just 4 questions to answer. I'd like all of you all to take part and answer these questions. We'll give ourselves a couple of minutes for the participants to answer. We have 58 participants as we speak. Thank you. The polls are coming in. While Mr. Rama, if you can have a look at the questions that's been sent on the chat, right after the poll, we can start to address them.
Sure.
Thank you. The polls are coming in nicely. Okay, nearly half of them have voted.
Thank you.
Just hold on for another minute or so. Okay, in another 30 seconds, I'll end the poll, and we can proceed with the Q&A. We'll have a look at the results as well. So we have 64 participants. It's a very high turnover based on the registration. Out of 70 plus, 64 people. And Mr. Rama, you did a very good job in keeping all of them to the last session.
Thank you. I really appreciate that because I know it's a very difficult task to keep everyone occupied until the end of the seminar, because some of the seminars that I attended, actually, some of them actually leave halfway of the seminar or webinar. So I'm happy that we had all 59 people until the end.
Okay, so I've ended the poll. I will share the results.
Okay.
And then we can take on with the question and answer.
Sure.
So a lot of them definitely agree that they came up with some new ideas over the talk. They, more than 70% agree that knowledge and skill that was presented will definitely help them improve their current job. Very likely that they will continue to get some services from you, and a lot of them are looking forward for future programs by Adipven. Very well, very nicely done results.
Thank you.
So we'll now quickly go into the question and answer. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat, or if you want to ask directly, it's also possible. But let Mr. Rama answer now some of the questions that is here. I'll take the first one. So this is from Saidatul from Petronas. in your
Okay.
opinion, what will be the best IP protection strategy, either for prediction tool or exploration technology? Over to you, Mr. Rama.
Okay, when you talk about technology in this era, there is no like isolated innovation, so to speak. Whether we like it or not, we have to have a full system in place. So thanks for the question. Very interesting question. Very useful question indeed. From my perspective, whether it's predictive or not, the innovation has to have some predictive element to it, because you're going to start with the predictive element, and then you can improve as we speak, because eventually, whether we like it or not, nobody from the probably in my experience, I would imagine in the next 5 years, no companies will take up new technologies without any AI or IoT elements into it. Okay, because the AI IoT elements will be required and will be part and parcel of our life moving forward. So to answer the question, I foresee that we need the innovation that can actually solve problems across the board, not in isolation.
Okay, thank you. There's another question from Noor Effendi. He's from the university. Thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to know a scenario in our university where a student who created invention or maybe spin off the business using university resources, what would be the IP position, ownership rights, etc. I mean, based on my experience also coming up from USM, we had always this question where student invents something as part of the university research program. There's always this difficult questions like, who owns the IP, what is the split, how to spin that off further, and how does foreign companies will come and buy over those technologies. That's a very big topic, but maybe if you can just summarize that.
Sure. Thanks for that. You see, by default, if you're working, I repeat myself, working, if you're working for an organization or a university and your job scope requires you to do research, that innovation, that invention, the IP to that invention belongs to the organization, to the university by default. That is the law. Okay. But the question actually relating to the students. Remember, students are not to be are not employees. In fact, they are your clients. From the realities, theoretically speaking or legally speaking, students are clients of the university because they pay to study and they pay to get their certificates or degrees. All right. So when it comes to students, normally the IP that is being created by research done by the students are not owned by the university automatically. That is the reason why we normally advise our clients, our university clients, to be very clear. And I'm sure, I think Che Izaida is here online today. And one of the things that we are happy with UKM is that they actually sign a contract with the students in order to have the IP of the work being transferred from the student to the university. So to the person who asked that question just now, we recommend you to have a contract, an agreement to transfer the rights from the students to the university, without which by default the students will be the owners, co-owners of the IP together with the university. On that point, Joel, maybe I just should highlight to here. I also mentioned to earlier that if you are talking about working for the university or organization, and it should be part of your work. I said the part of the work. Let's say there was a case, very interesting case in Australia. Some of you may be familiar with this case. What happened was, this was in University of Western Australia, UWA. This guy, Dr. Gray, invented, this was about 15 years ago, I think. Dr. Gray invented a drug for treating cancer. Okay, so he went and proposed the details of the invention to the university. Back then, the UWA was not interested. They said that, okay, that's not our focus. We are not thinking of filing a patent, and we are not interested with your invention. Yeah, so they just ignored him, for the lack of better word. So obviously, Dr. Gray was very disappointed. After a while, he left the university. He started his own business, and he commercialized the drug. And within 5 years, that drug became a blockbuster drug. Okay, he was making millions of dollars. So obviously the university woke up one day and said that, hey, that invention belongs to us. Dr. Gray invented the drug when he was with us. Therefore, we should get the income. So what they did was they sued Dr. Gray in Australia. Okay, and interestingly, in the first court, the university won the case because university said that he was an employee, he was a researcher, therefore the rights belong to the university. The matter went all the way up to the highest court in land in Australia, and the high court actually changed the decision, overruled the decision, and then they said that the invention was never owned by the university because they say that they look at the title of Dr. Gray when he was under employment with the university. When they look at the contract of employment between the university and Dr. Gray, he was employed as a lecturer. Okay, so now the court said that going with the definition from the dictionary, normal English dictionary, a lecturer is one who teaches. A lecturer is not someone who conducts research. If Dr. Gray did research when he was with the University of Western Australia, that part of the work was outside his job scope. Therefore, that invention was owned by Dr. Gray alone and was never owned by university to start with.
Very interesting.
So very important for the universities to remember, you must identify yourself as lecturer and researcher for the university to have rights to the invention, even if you're an employee of the university. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the students, things are even more complicated. So I still recommend you to sign a contract with the student to say that you are doing your postgraduate research study with us. So during your study, you may come up with new inventions, new improvements. All IP to the improvement, to the innovations will be owned by the university. Okay, then the university will have the full control of the IP. Otherwise, no.
Okay, very interesting. That's really enlightening. We have one more question from Priya Madhavan. Hello, Mr. Rama. I'm a researcher in a private university. How can I protect my research proposal from being copied and submitted to other grants by others?
Okay, this is a common problem that everybody is facing, because when you submit your proposal, in fact, not only researchers, this applies to even companies sending quotations or proposal on new products to another company or another organization or to the government. People do have access to your paper, to your documents, and therefore it's going to be difficult. Okay, by default, whatever work that you create, as long as it's original, it is protected under copyright. Okay, so the copyright is automatically exists in any work that you create as long as it is original. Yeah, that means when I say original, means it is not copied from someone else. Okay, number one. Number two, before you send any document, especially that those contains what you call confidential information or your trade secret to any other party, please make sure that you sign a non-disclosure agreement with the other party. And that non-disclosure agreement should include a clause to say that if we are not appointed for this project, okay, whatever details that we shared with you, whatever confidential information that we shared with you, should remain in confidence, and you should not use that information to share with others or the company that has been appointed, or for you to improve your own product without engaging any third party. I know it's easy to say than done, because obviously agreement is a matter of what is written on paper. So how do you make sure that they follow what you say and what not? Yeah, of course the law is not in your favor, so you really have to go after them if there's any breach. So by having the non-disclosure agreement, that will help you to prepare your case, because by signing the contract, the non-disclosure agreement, the other party has accepted that you have indeed shared some confidential information, and therefore it's their obligation to keep that information in confidence. Okay, so Ms. Priya, I recommend you to sign a non-disclosure agreement with anyone before you share. Having said that, one more thing maybe I should also highlight, Joel, with your permission. It is not easy to sign NDA, especially if you are talking to company, a big company. Okay. Remember, if you're a researcher, you're a small Sendirian Berhad, you're a small proprietor, and you're talking to a giant company like, say, Microsoft, for example, for argument's sake, right? Okay. For them, you are just another person proposing something to Microsoft. Okay. For you, they are probably their only target. Okay. So you probably need them more than they need you. So sometimes big companies, whenever they have a huge setup, they prefer not to sign NDA because they are admitting liability the moment you put something to them, you pass something to them. So big companies sometimes tend to be very, very careful in signing NDA. And if they don't sign NDA, you will lose the opportunity to share your confidential information anyway. All right. And therefore, your proposal will never reach them. So sometimes you have to play a very strategic game. So when you share something, you have to share bare minimum to the other party so that they can evaluate your proposal and to agree to accept your proposal or otherwise. So it's very important. It's a very gray area how much to share and how much not to share. But the thing is, it comes with experience. So I really recommend you to engage someone before I get professional advice before you pass anything to third parties.
Thank you, Mr. Rama. I think within the construction industry, always faced similar issues as well. Sometimes when you propose a submittal or proposal to the client, you always have some nice ideas in there how to execute the project. Although a price might be high, they take the idea and they don't award you the project. That happens all the time in my sector as well. In the similar thought, question from Drona: as a trainer, how can we safeguard our training materials?
Okay, training materials, again, as long as they are original, the contents are original, should fall under copyright. So, and the copyright protection will exist automatically the moment you created the work, okay? But this is the thing that can complicate matters because, you know why, when you talk about copyright, and I said that it exists automatically, Drona may have created something, and I may have created something similar or identical, and we so happened that both of us thought the same thing and we came up with the same thing. Very unlikely case scenario, but has happened before. Okay, so what happened now is we have two persons created something which according to them are original. Okay, but technically speaking, both of us, one of us actually copied the others because when it comes to original, whoever comes up with the work first is the original author. Okay. If Drona has all the records to prove that she created the work before me, then she is the rightful owner. Okay. So Drona, to answer your question, it is very important not only to compile all the documents and claim the copyright. It's also important for you to monitor the dates that you created, and also to monitor the people who have contributed to the work. Okay. Remember, when you talk about copyright there, it's always good to have more than one author. For example, if the work was created by a single author, the term of the copyright is lifelong of the author plus 50 years from the death of the author. Okay, let's say we have a team of 10 people worked on the paper. Okay, the term of the copyright will be lifelong of the last surviving author plus 50 years. Okay, so copyright can actually give you very long protection. Yes, it can give you very narrow protection, but indeed give you very long protection, and the cost is actually very, very reasonable. Maybe you just have to pay like 1,000 ringgit, and you probably can get 60, 70 years of protection.
Oh, nice one. Next time when I prepare something, I'll bring my son along. He's 9 years old as a co-author as well.
Yes.
Okay, a few more questions before we open the session. Let me see. From Krishnan. Hi, Mr. Rama. As mentioned by you earlier, when a student carries out research at the university and signs a contract, passing the rights to IP to the university, the student becomes the co-owner of the IP. In this case, how would the student benefit from this?
Okay, just to clarify, when the student signs a contract passing the IP to the university, the student will cease from becoming the co-owner, meaning the IP is being transferred from the student to the university. So the IP, the student is no longer owner or co-owner of the IP, just to clarify the first point, yeah. So I think he missed the word. He won't be, the student will not be a co-owner anymore. In this case, how would the student benefit from this? Now, when you created a new invention and you file a patent application, everybody in the team has to be named in the patent application. Remember, when you file a patent application, you must recognize whoever has contributed to the invention from the technical point of view. This thing happens in a lot of government, without naming names. A lot of government institutes, they always name the big boss as the co-inventor. All right. And when I ask them how come your big boss is a co-inventor? Because he's so busy, how can he can do this? And also he's from a different field. How could he create something in this field? The answer that I always get is that, when we name the big boss, it's easy to get the funding approved. Which is not, while I can understand why people do that, it's not a good thing to do, because remember, patents can be revoked for naming a wrong inventor, number one. Patents can be revoked for not naming a correct inventor, number two. Okay, so if you name someone who has not contributed to the invention, that is a ground to revoke the patent. If you purposely or accidentally omitted a name of a person who has indeed contributed to the invention, that is also a ground to invalidate the patent. Now, why is it important to name the inventor? Some of you, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the LED diode. Okay, the LED diode is actually, if you look at any electronic device that you're looking at now, you probably see that every electronic device that you use, you touch, will have a LED diode anyway. All right. The LED was created by a Japanese guy. I can't remember his name now, unfortunately. The company filed a patent without realizing how big the product going to be. Okay, and it's a Japanese company, by the way. So they filed a patent. Fast forward 5 years later, the product became so successful. Beyond imagination, yeah. All of a sudden, all the companies started implementing LED into their electronic gadgets, and therefore, suddenly the company became so big. So the inventor, the Japanese guy, went to the company, to his bosses, and said that, hey, I did contribute to the invention. Because of me, the company is doing very well financially. Can I get some token of appreciation? He was asking for, if I remember correctly, he was asking for 25 million yen. Okay, so the company said that, why should we pay you? We are the owner. Okay, you are just a researcher. Okay, you are employed by us to do this. So we don't see any reason why we should pay you. So he was very disappointed. He resigned from the company after that. He moved to the US. He took up US citizenship. Okay, after a while, he sued the company, the ex-company in Japan, back, and in Japan, obviously. And remember I said he asked for 25 million. Eventually, the court in Japan awarded him 250 million yen. The reason why this is important, because in a lot of countries, in most patent acts, laws, there is a clause which says that an inventor should get some form of remuneration should the invention become successful beyond what was expected at the time of signing the contract. Okay, so to answer Keishan's question, why is it important? Now you realize it is important to have your name as a co-inventor in the event that the invention becomes successful, so that you can go back to the company or to the organization to say that, hey, I need to get paid for my contribution. Beyond that, there is no, the inventors have no rights. The rights remain with the applicant owner. Okay. Even if the invention is the greatest invention of all time, and the inventor has some personal attraction to the invention for whatever reason, let's say, yeah. And if the company or the employer thinks that the invention is of no interest to the company, the applicant, the company, can drop the patent application, and the inventor cannot make anything, cannot go and complain to the court, because end of the day, the rights to the invention belong and remain with the applicant company, the employer, and the inventor is there as a form of recognition only, and is a form of remuneration in the event that the invention becomes successful. Joel?
Thank you, Mr. Rama. I think we have one last question on the chat group
Sure.
from Mohammad Shazwan. In order to develop a robust AI system, the system needs to be educated via numerous data collection and data analysis. Related to personal data.
Yeah. This is actually a big issue. Our sister company called RoboMy, we developed, without going into the details here, we developed a healthcare monitoring system using AI. And in order, as just like any other AI, the AI system will only be smarter and will only get smarter based on the data that you provide. So Shazwan's comment is very correct that you need to educate through numerous data collection and data analysis. So the more data you provide to the machine for machine learning purposes, the better the system going to be, and therefore the accuracy will be improved. But when we requested the data from the health authorities, unfortunately, the health authorities has not provided the data despite our numerous attempts. The reason being is, as Shazwan said, is privacy. Okay, under the Privacy Act, you are not allowed to share health data with third parties without the consent of the patient or the parties involved. All right, so this is actually a big issue. Now, however, in countries like UK, we also working with Oxford University, by the way. Oxford University managed to get some data from their own teaching hospital, and in the UK, they actually do allow they do allow health data to be shared in the event that there is a demand, there is a reason to share the data. For example, situation like pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. So for that purpose, we managed to get the data from Oxford University, but unfortunately, we were not able to obtain the data from Malaysian health authorities. So it is still an issue. Until and unless the laws are amended, I don't think I'm in a position to answer the question. So we still have to rely on the Act or the laws of Malaysia, and hopefully the government realizes that it is time for us to look at the amendments and to ensure that data is being shared, as long as they don't hit the privacy of the people involved. I hope I answered Shazwan's question. If not, please rephrase your question, Shazwan.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have on the chat group. If I missed any of the questions, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask the question directly to Mr. Rama. I think there's definitely few key takeaways, Mr. Rama, from this seminar. I think the key one that I really really caught me was the basics. That without commercialization, the public won't benefit, right? Yeah. So I think that's.
Loyal, sorry to interrupt. I think there's a question from FND. I think 1049.
Okay, I might have missed that. Can you address that, because I've just restarted my PC, so the question is lost.
So the question says, hello, hi sir, FND here, staff from university. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to, oh, sorry. I think we did answer the question. This one, the IP ownership, when students
you already answered it, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from the participants? I can hear someone typing. All good.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll share this presentation, as well as the video will be shared on the Facebook link. The link was shared, as you can also see on the screen. So Rama's mobile number is also there, so feel free to privately give him a call. and if you need his services, he has proven himself here in this webinar that he has got the full understanding of the legal issues as well as the science behind it, which is really very uncommon. So most of the time you either talk to someone from the science center, science background, or someone with a legal background. But here we have Mr. Rama, who has got basically understanding of both segments, and that's really a very key trait that a lot of us can benefit from. So shall we have a photo session?
Yes, please.
So I'll really would like to ask everyone to turn on your video. Good. So there's 61 participants. Mr. Rama, you did a very, very, very good job in holding all the participants for more than an hour, 1.5 hours.
Thank you.
Okay, nice to see all of y'all. We hope once the pandemic is over, we'll have opportunity to see all of y'all face to face in some events.
Sure.
Good. Okay, smile, take a screenshot. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see all of y'all. Mr. Rama, any last words?
Yes, there's a comment from Norazina Momasani. She said that she's interested in the case study. Che or Puan Norazina, thank you. And if you need the details of the case study, please feel free to drop me an email. So I'm more than happy to share the more detailed case study on that. And also, as Joel mentioned just now, we'll be posting this video on our Facebook and Instagram as well. So please feel free to watch that. And later, my colleagues will be sending the slides to you via email. For those who have attended today's session, you can feel free. We don't claim any copyright to that, so nothing to worry about that. Feel free to share with your colleagues, friends, family members. Obviously, there will be a lot of images there, so there are no text. So please ask them to watch the video on our Facebook and social media pages. Thank you, everyone, and once again, and thank you to Joel for moderating today's session.